Hello, everybody. We are so excited that you're here to join us for our first Champ Camp of the year. And Team 75 is really excited to be bringing Champ Camp back this year. And we are back and better with our wonderful first speakers, Robert Flores and Kira Zhang. And we are vamping up Champ Camp this year by also inviting industry professionals in future ones. So make sure to watch out for that. But I'll keep my introduction brief and I'll turn it over to our introductions.
Yeah, so hi everyone. If you haven't met me already, my name is Robert Flores. I have the honor of serving as your VP of SoCal and Career Development. And in terms of my prior competition experience, I've joined my freshman year and I'm currently a junior. So my first year in DECA, I think I won sixth place at states in HTDM. So I wasn't able to qualify to ICDC, but last year I partnered up with Kira and that we were able to get second place in MTDM.
Everyone, I'm Kira. I'm also a junior, so this is my third year in DECA, and much like Robert, I joined in my freshman year, and I think in my freshman year I won third in Principles of Marketing at districts, and then yeah, I did not qualify for ICDC, but then last year Robert and I partnered up, and now we're here, so I'm super excited to be here.
So, can you guys share a technique that you use to stay organized and manage the time constraints of a role play?
Yes, of course. So the main thing that Robert and I do in terms of trying to like keep on task and manage our time is we always have an agenda for our role play. So we write down all the PIs and everything that we want to address, and that way we can kind of have a structure that we follow in both our notes and when we're actually speaking. So we can this way we're able to manage both the preparation time and when we're actually presenting.
Yeah, so to build off on what Kira was saying, I think a meeting agenda is really helpful because it helps you have like a lot of structure. So with the amount of PIs that you have, especially when you go through the reps of your practice, you're able to kind of in your head keep a mental clock of how much time you spend on, let's say, like the introduction and the context of everything, and then how much time you spend on every single one of the PIs. So by kind of having that meeting agenda, you're able to spread out all the information so that you're able to talk as in depth as you can for each of the PIs without necessarily like putting too much emphasis on one where the other lacks.
That's awesome. So, moving on to the next question, I wanted to ask you guys more of an MTDM specific one, but pretty much you guys know that having creative ideas is always key. And so, how do you ensure that your role play strategies prioritize this creativity as you go about planning for the role play itself?
Yes, so what me and Kira do, especially for creativity, at the international level, creativity is so important because once you're at ICDC, all of these people already like know what they're talking about. They know their PIs, they know what they're gonna say for each of them. They're very knowledgeable in the very technical terms. So what me and Kira do is that for us specifically, we memorize all the PIs. We came up with like a whole we have had a whole doc of all the marketing PIs and we split them up so we memorize each one of them. And by doing this, once we go straight into the competition when we're in our prep time, we don't really have to spend as much time trying to figure out what we're going to say for specific PIs or figure out what they mean, but we're able to allocate that time toward trying to be creative and trying to create the most creative idea that pertains to the prompt.
Yeah, and the second thing that we do that I say is like one of the most creative parts of our role play is that for every single PI we try to have a visual. So we have we structure like our presentation kind of like a slideshow, and for every single slide we would have like a little visual. And I think one of the biggest things that helped in terms of the creativity was just making all sorts of different things. So we would have drawings of literally anything, and I think that was really helpful for us because it kind of shows what we're talking about to the judge as well as like it sets us apart from the other competitors where we have something to look at for every single thing that we're talking about.
And to also add a point there, with the visuals that we create, we pretty much, yeah, we try to create a visual for like a lot of things because I think it really adds some sort of unique nature inside like the judge's mind, being being able to like kind of recognize and visualize our role play because of the visuals, but make sure your guys' visuals serve a purpose. Don't just like do a ton of visuals that don't necessarily serve a purpose. You want your visuals to be useful so your judge can actually think back to the visuals and like relate that to a specific PI so they can give you points for that.
Yeah, we're both kind of terrible at drawing, but it's still really helpful, even if, yeah, my pug doesn't look like a pug. But, you know, I would say just anything, like Robert said, your visuals have to have purpose, but it's still important to have visuals in the first place, so you're not just talking and talking and talking.
Okay, that's super helpful, guys. Thank you. So, would you guys be able to share a time when you had to adapt to a major challenge during the competition and share how exactly you handled that?
Yeah, so actually at States last year, the biggest challenge Robert and I faced was we spent our whole time preparing for the instructional areas that were specific to marketing, right? So like Robert said, we would memorize those PIs, but then actually our role play at States was a business administration instructional area. So that kind of threw us off because we were prepared for marketing rather than business admin. But I think the way that we tackled that was we kind of just changed how we prepared. So usually, because we're so like knowledgeable in all the marketing PIs, we just divide and conquer. But this time, I think we worked together really well, and we both contributed to every single PI. And I think that was really important for us because even though we weren't like 100% confident in what we were doing, by working together, we could get that same level of confidence as if we had already memorized everything.
Yeah, so to kind of build off on what Kira was saying and to kind of reiterate, we have pretty much that idea of like divide and conquer because we usually know what we're going to do and know what PIs we're going to talk about. But this specific like role play, it just threw us off because they were PIs, they were the business admin PIs that we didn't really know. So once you're in your head and you read the prompt and you really don't understand it, you guys as partners, whoever are in TDM events, you guys need to know when to shift and to either talk and communicate with your partner as well as like do your own thing. Because in this specific moment, like communicating with your partner, especially because both of us were so confused, helped us form really creative ideas and especially build a good presentation that we otherwise wouldn't have if we were to just like branch off and divide and conquer if we didn't communicate at all.
I love that. And that's also like a really great way to apply the knowledge that you had, especially like bouncing back from a whole other instructional area. So yeah, and then the next question that we had for you guys is how have the skills and experiences that you've gained from DECA competitions translated into your real world experiences or goals that you might have, like for example, careers?
Yeah, I think for me personally, when I didn't I think I was shifted toward more of like the business side. I think I want to do more of like a business or sales career. And I think marketing especially helps a lot with that because first, it helps you a lot with the critical thinking and the creative side of things because the prompts that they give you, they're different a lot of the time. Like you have so much creative liberty with them. And along with that critical thinking and creativity, you couple that with public speaking and being able to pretty much say your ideas, say what you're thinking, which I think is really helpful, especially with the field that I want to go in, which is sales. And I think that's also really helpful for like any type of career that anyone's trying to go to, being able to say your ideas, say what's on your mind. That's helpful for like interviews, job interviews, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I always tell people that are interested in DECA, like DECA really helped me kind of discover like my voice is what I would say. Like I used to be super shy, and then now that I've like kind of competed in DECA, I've been much more comfortable with speaking and also yeah, just the whole business aspect. Like before DECA, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in general, but now I know I'm leaning more towards a business and marketing career. So definitely just having this opportunity in high school to kind of explore these like case studies like it's kind of like a non-traditional subject. Like you usually have like STEM, English, whatever. But now that I've been able to kind of explore like business, finance, entrepreneurship, marketing, all the different clusters, I know now that there's so much more that I can do. And DECA just kind of like it was that stepping stool for me to get there. And yeah, like I said, I'm really interested in a marketing or business career. And also DECA just provided me with all the soft skills to kind of get there.
That's great. Okay, so now taking some questions from the people in the Zoom room. What are some examples of creative visuals that you can use in a DECA roleplay presentation, and how are you making those different visuals?
I would say what Robert and I always do is we make a lot of graphs and charts, things like that. That's like something we always have in our role plays. But also, it really depends on what your PIs are about. Like, for example, we have one that's talking about kind of buying behaviors. So for that one, we always, we go straight to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and we draw that. So it's just you have things like that that you can draw. And then also specifically for marketing, something that's always easy to do is to, draw a mascot, draw a logo, create a brochure, things like that. Even if you're not super good at drawing, like Robert and I, it's still just a really great way to kind of be creative, things like that.
Yeah, and I think having first what Kira said, having those drawings, even if they're not really good, I think because you have so much room with like making the types of like drawings or illustrations, it's really unique and it's really unique in the judge's mind. So I think that helps a lot. So if you have the opportunity, I'd say do that, especially for marketing. Other types of visuals, I really like to go to like ones that are very technical. I like kind of what are they called? A pros and cons list or like a T chart. Having those types of visuals, it really lays it out for the judge to be able to visualize, oh, this is the point that they're making. This is why maybe it's bad, like for a pros and cons list, or maybe something like a tree map. So it's like you have like the bubble, you have the main bubble, and you have things branching out of it. These are the types of things. I think I always include those types of visuals. You can always incorporate that into your prompt whenever you can. And the reason why I like doing those is because when you're showing and making connections to your judge, verbally, it doesn't always stick with the judge. When you say it, when you says, "Oh, X connects to Y." Sometimes they need that visual cue where they're able to see it and that they're able to make the connection themselves. And it better, as I already said, it better sticks in their mind. So after when they're actually grading you, they give you more points for it as well.
Yeah, and I can kind of end it by saying that another great visual idea is like mock-ups because like marketing is everywhere like in our day-to-day lives. Like if you're just on any device, there's always some type of marketing that you encounter. So if you just take what you see in like your real world experience, you can apply it to your DECA roleplay and like you can create mock social media posts, mock websites, mock emails, things like that. There's you can mock anything that you take from the real world and put it into a DECA roleplay. And I think that's really useful because it's so familiar to us and it's also so familiar to the judge.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. And as a last question, do you guys have any tips or resources to study for the marketing cluster exam?
I'd say
Okay.
Uh, definitely use Deca Plus. If your chapter has Deca Plus, use that as much as you can. The role plays in there are like it's pretty much like gold. We looked at all the role plays on there. We look at all the tests. We run through all of them, and I think oh also something I also want to emphasize. There are so many. Me and Kira do a lot of practice role plays. So there's only a limited amount of prompts there are out there, like online, not only on Deca Plus, because I think Deca Plus is like something like three, I think, if I remember correctly. And then we pull some from like searching just on Google or whatever. Utilize those role plays because they're only so little. And practice did before. We'd spend time on a role play, but not necessarily go through like the whole motions of it, like going through the 30 minutes of prep and then presenting. But we'd maybe just look at the PIs and then look at the prompt and then just try to brainstorm, oh, what would we do? What would we do in this situation? Just be mindful of the role plays that you're doing because me and Kira got to a point where we practiced so much and that we wanted to do more role plays, but we've seen them all. So then we weren't able to find a new one that we were able to utilize and then do an actual role play for.
Would say also, yeah, for the tests specifically, well, the tests are based off like performance indicators, right? So just by like memorizing your PIs, that's basically you're covering everything the test could possibly, ask of you. So I thought it was like before I memorized all the PIs, tests were mostly like I would just go into it and like hope that I know what it's talking about. But then after I knew every single PI, it was like, oh, like I remember, I've gone over this, I've seen this before. So because literally the tests are based off the performance indicators, so just by knowing those, you can basically cover everything on the test. So business admin and then whatever cluster you're in. And yeah, like Robert was mentioning, we would kind of like do little exercises where we would practice like little pieces of the role plays. Like we wouldn't do a whole role play. We would either spend time just on PIs or just spend time on doing visuals or just spend time on, presenting. And then once we kind of developed all those different skills, that's when we put it together into an actual role play. And we treated role plays as like milestones and like tests for us rather than just practice. So we practice every individual little skill and then put it together. And I thought that way everything got a lot more like cohesive and a lot easier.
Fantastical insights. Now you guys were talking about testing. The next thing that we want to ask, so you guys mentioned how, you switched events from some different event. I think Robert, you mentioned HTDM
Yep.
to now marketing. So I guess my question for you guys is, how do you find the right event that resonates with you and the right cluster that resonates with you since there's so much choice within DECA? So how did that process go like for you, and what tips do you have for finding a cluster or an event that really resonates?
Yeah, so Robert and I knew like right away that we wanted to be partners. So like once we established that, we kind of tried everything out. So we just went through all the different team events. We looked at all the different prompts and then we practiced a couple of them and then we just found one that we were most comfortable with and that we were most interested in, right? So at our school, our CTA pathway is sales and marketing. So already that kind of establishes a marketing foundation for us. And then by like, DECA has MTDM and it has also, I think there's another marketing team event. And then so we just tried all of those different events out, and then we just thought that MTDM was the best for us. I would just say, try everything out and then see what you like the most because all the events are different and there's so much you can do differently in each of them. So it really depends on you and your experiences.
Yeah, so what Kira said, like really you can dip your feet in the water and see if you like it. Like that's what we did. We were able to go through each of the events because, as Kira already said, each of them are kind of different in nature. But let's say you guys are, because before I did HTDM, right? So at first I felt kind of tied down to HTDM because I was like, because I think I was one place away from qualifying for ICDC at States with that event. So I was like, I have to do this event. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it, that type of thing. But I think you guys shouldn't feel tied down to an event if you're already doing it. And maybe you get a new partner and then maybe your partner wants you to switch to their event. I think just try everything because once you feel tied down, it kind of limits you a lot because you don't necessarily know whether or not you're going to be successful in another event. And I think a lot of the events, even though there are very different in sort of like the prompts, the things that you take away, like the 21st century skills that you're judged on, those still transfer over from event to event. So when you transfer from, let's say, HTDM to marketing, there's a lot of overlap that you guys still have. So that doesn't mean you can't be successful if you guys transfer.
Yeah, just like Robert was saying, I would say any practice is practice. So like no matter what role play you're doing, you're still getting good practice that you can transfer to any event. So yeah, just try out different things until you find what's perfect for you.
Love those answers, and they were both really awesome. And so we did get one more question from the chat, and it was how many hours approximately per week did you guys spend practicing? And did that kind of differ from before districts to states to even ICDC?
So I would say before districts, we were really motivated and we would spend like 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours a week. And then we didn't do so well at districts, so we tried even harder at state. And then I think that was around the same amount of practice. But then after state, before ICDC, we um we got to the point where we practiced so much that it was kind of like do we need to still keep practicing, which we did, but just on like a lower scale, like we were just refining our skills, right? So then before ICDC, we just spent those couple of days, weeks, like practicing as much as we could, trying really hard. So I would say it's really dependent though upon like your schedules and also what kind of practice you do, because you could do every single role play there is, and it might not be enough because you have to kind of refine all of your skills like what Robert and I did. So it really depends because there's only so much you can do. But I would say we spent like about 1 to 2 hours a week, but it's really subjective.
Yeah. So yeah, what Kira said, I think it's really about you get as much as you put in for the practice that you put. So if you guys put in the work, you're going to be successful. And I think especially um something that was really important to us, we kept referencing over it, but we memorized our PIs. A lot of people, they like to go straight into it and then be like they remember their PIs kind of, but they don't necessarily know them down to a T. The reason why me and Kira did that is because we wanted to limit the amount of factors that would maybe stop us from winning at ICDC because we wanted everything to be like sort of a well-oiled machine besides the creativity aspect. So we know what we're gonna do. We know what different time slots we're gonna work on this. We're gonna work on our PS for this time slots. Go over it at the end, that sort of thing. And also, I think what also building off of what Kira said too, it's about the type of practice that you have. So if you put in like 3 hours per week, but you're just doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and maybe there's a little bit of improvement, there's a way of improving a lot better by focusing specifically on your weaknesses. So for me and Kira, we knew that we had the presentation down, we know that we had our PIs down, but once it got to a point closer to ICDC, we'd focus a lot more on looking at different prompts and seeing how we can make the prompt as creative as possible and make our idea as possible. So that's an example of how you can target your weaknesses and then build them up to strengths and prioritizing that.
All right. And with that, thank you so much, Robert and Kira, for joining us as a panelist for our first ever Champ Camp. And thank you to everyone who joined. We hope that you took something away from this. And we are very, very excited to see you all next month for our next Champ Camp. Thank you guys and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.